Hey folks, and welcome to Typology, the show in which we explore the mystery of the human personality through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner, the producer of the show. We're really happy that you joined us today. We got a great one for you, Jelani Memory. He is a Black father with a blended family, and racism was an inevitable topic of conversation in the home. So he wrote a book for his children to help with the challenges and the conversations they were having. Kids loved it. Shared it with some of his friends. They shared it with their kids. They loved it. Ended up taking it to market, and it has blown up. It's called A Kid's Book About Racism. A Kid's Book About Racism. He ended up starting a publishing company, and he's written now several books that are, challenging topics of conversation for families with children. So done really, really well. Can't keep it in stock. A Kid's Book About Racism. He also originally founded Circle Media, which is now co-owned by Disney. It's a little device that is a filter for your Wi-Fi. We had that in our home for a while. Really, really cool. You can check that out too. He is an Enneagram One. Or is he? The further we got into this conversation, we really leaned into 3. So Enneagram 1 or 3, we'll see. Hey, if you want to check out some other episodes, the more recent one related to Enneagram 1 is Lee and Laura Camp. I believe it's titled Lee and Laura Camp on Healing with the Enneagram. And Lee is a 1 and Laura is an 8. So it's really helpful to get a bird's eye view for what a 1 might face in a relationship, or if you are in a relationship to a 1 and want to know what a 1 is thinking, be sure to check that one out. Lee and Laura Camp on Healing with the Enneagram. Hey, without any further ado, let's get to the man of the hour, your host, Ian Cron.
Jelani Memory, welcome to Typology.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. And before we get started, as a 4 on the Enneagram, I want to express my deepest sorrow that my background is not nearly as interesting as yours is.
Yeah, well, I feel bad for your background slightly, but you don't got to look at your background. You look at my background, and I can see my background in my own, view screen. So,
well, you have gamed up on me, man. And even Anthony's background looks better. This is my show, man. This is my show. The only good thing on is I have a new shirt on that has a heart on it. Do you see that?
Oh, yeah. I love that.
So I'm playing my role. Well, hey, man, tell us about yourself. And you are an Enneagram 1, the improver. I no longer call you all the perfectionists.
Yeah.
Because I think an improver is actually a better description of who you actually are. And I just want to know about you and how you learned about the Enneagram and how you determined you were a 1.
Yeah. So, gosh, where do I start? Born in Portland, Oregon, Black dad, white mom. Dad leaves when I'm 4. Mom raises us by herself. Youngest of 4 kids. And I spent my entire life either wanting to be an artist or go play in the NBA. That was my entire childhood. And I sort of danced between, you can imagine the different friend groups that those entailed. And, I didn't realize this until I became an adult. I had a tumultuous childhood. I had 2 drug addicted parents, experienced abuse as a kid, never had, I think, any real fundamental relationships in terms of friendships until I became maybe a junior or senior in high school. But yet was the most popular kid in school, had all the friends, played 3 varsity sports. Again, didn't realize till later, I was experiencing extreme depression ever since I was in early adolescence. So you can imagine just the cocktail that created for me as a kid. And, I feel quite fortunate. I'm going to get to the Enneagram part, by the way.
That's great. No, this is fantastic.
Awesome.
I just really want people to have a sense of the family of origin.
Sure.
That often we see different types, have different, obviously everyone has a different story, but there are oftentimes features of upbringing that different types
Yeah.
have, right? So
Yeah.
keep going.
Got it. So my senior year, having never gone to church, having never heard the gospel, having never interacted with religion at all, and actually being quite outspoken in terms of, being just a non-believer, if you will, and being able to sort of crush arguments about, this non-existent God who doesn't exist and, all the things, I become a Christian. And it revolutionizes my life in every way possible, inside, outside. I am just a completely different person. And I think for the first time in my life, I start to feel the feelings of my childhood, of my adolescence, and of my sort of emerging adulthood. I start to really actually, I think, grieve all of my experiences and start to reflect on them. Go to college, Bible college, study theology, Bible, and Koine Greek with a little bit of speech common there. Stop playing sports for the first time in my life and have this massive vacuum of time, because before I was playing 3 sports year round, in infinitum. And I find myself with this desire in college to just start things, to just create things out of thin air. I didn't have the word for it then, but I think that was entrepreneurship. This idea, sort of this lack of having no fear of failure, I suppose. So, I spend 4 years, some of the best years of my life, growing up, I think, and becoming a whole person during my college years and getting ready to get launched out into the world. And, I think I started to understand myself more than I ever really had, that I was this blend of entrepreneurship, of creativity, of, you use that word improver, that I wanted to go make the world a better place genuinely.
Right.
And then I had the ability to lead other people in doing that I could somehow sort of coax other people into following me, into helping me do that. That was most exemplified during my college years and being student body president at the college. So first Black student body president at my college, got to do it 2 years in a row. First year I failed horribly. In the second year I ran on a platform going, I think I understand this job now, so you should elect me again. And they did. I mean, I could keep going. Do you want me to keep going into my story?
You can. I'm a therapist. We can go all day long on your story, man, and I'll be happy. But tell me about how you learned the Enneagram.
So, I think somebody had, gone, oh, what type are you? They had brought it up. Oh, you don't know what the Enneagram is? And I was like, no, I don't. And so they're like, oh, you should take this test. And me, I was like, I don't need to take a test to see who I am. Like, no, thanks. I'm not going to do that. So I ended up reading the types, and based on reading what the types were, I was like, oh, that's easy. I'm a type 1. Like, I don't even need to take the test. I'm a type 1. Of course, I eventually took the test and it was like, yeah, you're a type 1. And it's been this fascinating journey as I've, had it for, I'd say, probably the last decade, in terms of being able to reference it for myself, but also to learn more about other people and what their types are and what drives them, motivates them, what their fears are. So that's how I got sort of in touch with it.
Wow. And how has it, if it has, sort of affected your life and relationships?
You mean my type, or knowing about it?
Knowing about it.
It allows me, I think, to pause every once in a while. So this will find itself when I'm frustrated with an employee, or when I'm having a fight with my wife, or when I'm elated and I'm super pumped about something that nobody else is pumped about. Like, they're like, why are you so happy about that, Jelani?
Can you give me an example of that?
Something I'm really happy about?
Yeah, that you get pumped about, that everyone else is like, don't really get it.
I'll give you an example from yesterday, and this is going to be so in the weeds that you guys are going to be like, So HBO Max decided to release their entire slate of films next year. Warner Brothers decided to release their entire slate of films via HBO Max and theaters at the same time.
Right.
This would be 10 tentpole films. This has never been done before, ever in the history of movie making and theaters and sort of big budget productions. It will literally change filmmaking and the economics of the movie industry forever. forever, for the rest of existence. I got really excited about that and really pumped. And my wife was like, so does that mean we get to like watch it at home?
And what was it about it that pumped you up?
The idea of getting to, in the moment, recognize history making itself, to not just see that after the fact, but to see it in the moment. And one, kind of know that I know that, but two, to know all the benefits that will come of that. What that'll likely do is actually cede more power to sort of media and tech companies and away from Hollywood, and create the economics where actually artists and creators get paid more, as they are getting paid with the Netflixes of the world. And then sort of take this antiquated thing that we all should show up to this, dark room with the big screen and loud music and watch a thing together. And that's the only way, or the purest way, to experience media. I think it is a great way. It is just not the only way. And theaters have been this crazy holdout with their holdover distributors. So anyways, like, if you can't tell, I love movies and I love sort of the filmmaking business. But for me, what got me really excited was sort of recognizing that this is going to be an effect that's just going to snowball with every other studio.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. I have to say, you got 2 4s here, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, but maybe because I have a crappy TV. So I may need to go get, some 400-inch television for my 100-inch room. That might change it all for me. So you said before we started that it was so clear to you that you were one. Have you looked at all 9 types?
I believe so. I think at one time I have, and they all seemed so absurd to me that I could only be a 1.
Maybe we'll find out, right? So let's just. A lot of our listeners are people that are new to the Enneagram. So let me just kind of give a type overview, and then you can comment on it as a 1. So as I mentioned, 1s are called the improvers, the unconscious motivation that is driving the way that 1s act, think, and feel is a need, and oftentimes a compulsive need, to perfect themselves, others, and the world around them. So their passion is anger. And the way that anger manifests itself is more as resentment, kind of a simmering resentment, than it is straight up anger, right? You get more straight up anger from an Enneagram 8, the challenger. With a 1, it's kind of a simmering resentment just below the skin. And the origin of that resentment is 2 things. One is, it's like a little bit of a background message for the 1 as they look at the world is, it shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't be this way. And so that's kind of always operating in the operating system. It's like, it shouldn't be this way. And so when you walk into a room, your focus of attention, which is a term we use with the Enneagram, everybody has a different focus of attention. When I walk into a room, the things I notice are very different than what you notice. And what you notice is very different than what a 7 notices. Their attention, our attention nails to different things. Okay, fastens itself. So when a 1 walks into a room, what you see are the mistakes. You see what's disordered, what's not working. Like, I'm looking at your bookshelf right now. If I had a bookshelf like that, I'd have so much anxiety because it's so ordered. Look at it. It's so ordered. Like, even the action guys back there are probably, you probably can, if you come into the room, you might notice that one of your 6 kids, we'll get to that, have come in and maybe moved 1 or 2. And your first impulse will be to go fix it.
Yeah, I'll even go further than that. I'll go fix the thing that I did in the past. And I was like, that's not right. I'll move it over here. Right.
Yeah. And then you'll go and fix your kid for fixing your action figure.
Oh yeah. So I think that is fundamentally true for me as a 1, with a caveat. I feel like I've hacked this idea of finding what is out of order to delighting what is in order, and being able to go, oh, that's good. Oh, that's right. Oh, that like to start to feel sort of that excitement around that. It's what makes me, if I can toot my own horn a little bit, it's what makes me, I think, a really good boss. Is I typically hire people to do something they've never done before because I see in them an ordered bit, a skill, a talent, an ability to go do a specific thing that they themselves are going, really? You want to hire me to do that? And I'm like, oh yeah. Cause like, I just, it's that innate ability to see it while also being able to see like, I can't ever give this to you because you can't do that thing, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot of integration for a 1. I mean, that's unusual for a 1 to be able to do what you're describing, unless they've done a lot of personal work. Hey, Typology Tribe. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for helping us bring you what I hope is great content every week. Now, you all know I'm a big proponent of counseling. Whether you feel like something is interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving certain goals, counseling is a great tool to help identify what those blocks are and then work through them. Yet finding a therapist can sometimes feel intimidating, but not with BetterHelp. BetterHelp offers online counseling at your own time and your own pace. You can schedule secure video or phone sessions plus text and chat with your therapist when it's convenient for you. These are licensed professional counselors who specialize in things like depression, anxiety, stress, relationships, LGBT matters, trauma, and grief. BetterHelp has counselors available worldwide and have over 3,000 U.S. licensed therapists across all 50 states. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. And get this, if you're not satisfied with your counselor for any reason, you can request a new one at any time at no additional cost. Best of all, it's a truly affordable option. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/typologypodcast. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/typologypodcast. TYPOLOGYPODCAST. One of the areas of growth for a 1 would be learning how to see the fundamental perfection beneath the surface of all things.
Yeah.
Right? The fundamental goodness at the core of all things. Now, that's not to say there's not evil in the world. That's not to say that, there's, but I will say this, that all of us tend to believe we know, and 1s in particular, tend to believe they know what is right and wrong. Right? And so... And there's no, Well, there's no, it's pretty black and white, right? It's not, it doesn't have the nuance that other types might have as they see the world, right? So gray is a hard color oftentimes, although you wouldn't know it from my background today.
Yeah.
but actually this is a perfect background for me because I'm a 4 on the Enneagram and I believe in gray. So, but for 4s, I mean, for 1s, that confidence about knowing they know what right and wrong is, I'm always telling them, interrogate it. Like interrogate your assumption that there is a right and wrong, and you actually know what the right is and the wrong is, right?
Yeah.
Right.
As I think about exploring that for myself, I can find moments and times where I am that black and white, where this is good and this is bad, and I'm not even going to ask questions about what's good or bad. I just know it, and I'm here to disseminate that information to those people around me, also to live it out. So I think that is very true. The caveat that I'll give to that, and you use the word integration, and so I'll piggyback on that. My integrated self says sort of what is good can be gray. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And know that it's squishy and indeterminable, and so as opposed to defining good as a fixed point, as actually defining good is not knowing. Good is going, I don't know. And that's actually the right thing to say, which is sort of this fixed point with lots of space in it. And I think that's allowed me, because I described my childhood very quickly and very tumultuously. And clearly I've done a lot of personal work around that to just be as free with that information as I am. And fundamentally there is, I have to look at that and go, that made me who I am. And there was a lot of bad there, but also like there's a lot of beauty there. And also it left me pretty broken in a lot of ways, but part of my brokenness is who I am. So I can't fundamentally believe that I am as myself a wrong thing that needs to be completely remade just to like me or feel that I am good. And so it's created this ability to go, things can be broken and good. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And to, again, to let it be squishy. And I can't say it was always this way with me, but as a part of my personal development, getting there. Now, here's the thing, is I can do that with myself. I'm not always as gracious with other people in that same way, but I'm getting better and better at that. And it's different contexts and with different things. Like sometimes I will get stuck in a fight with my wife where I just go like, but you're wrong. Like, you're just wrong about this. And I can't not let you not know that you're wrong about it. And other times I get to a point where I go, oh my gosh, she is asking of me the same thing that not only I'm asking her, but I ask and beg of myself to be, which is this sort of like understanding, empathetic, let it go, find the higher order thing, and connect and get relationship, right? Not be right. The thing I've been told most throughout my life is you always think you're right. And my internal retort to that is, yeah, no duh. Which is such a one thing. Like, I know that it's such a one thing. And I'm monologuing, so I apologize. I'll finish with this. Part of my life as an entrepreneur, starting businesses, right? Fixing problems, fixing the world, if you will, is, how do I put this? Is to use that thing in me, that fixingness, that sort of feeling right, as a superpower. And know that it is limited. And that right alongside it is a kryptonite, which is believing I am right about things that I have no business being right about. And so part of that is meaning I got to stay in my zone, and then like company wise means I got to not do things that I'm bad at, because I will assume that I'm right at them and I will do them and I will totally blow them up and be bad at them. So I just give those to other people, and I don't even get close to them, because I'll start inserting my opinion, and I just let them be right at it. And I assume that I'm right in letting them be right about the thing that they're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think, well, I'm hearing a lot of 4 and 7 in you, and which makes sense, because those lines are attached to the 1. So when a 1 is healthy, you go to the high side of 7. You start to take on the characteristics and traits of a healthy 7. And 7s, in my mind, make the best entrepreneurs on the Enneagram. Like, they have an openness to experience. That's from the Big 5 personality test, which is a very accurate measure of personality. You have an openness to experience. You're able to find overlaying patterns and things that other people don't see. You're able to spot opportunities, and yet there's kind of a playfulness, to the discovery. And then when you're under stress, you typically go to the low side of 4, right? Where it's sort of depressed, melancholy, in the worst sense of the word, resigned, a little needy and clingy to other people. And so that's where 1s will typically go when they're not doing great.
Yeah.
Right?
So imagine that, but growing up in a home where there is no adults to be needy and clingy to, then I just cave in internally.
Yes.
Right.
Right. And you take on that will contribute to the formation of a 1 personality, right? Because you're growing up in chaos, and you're like, well, who's in charge here? Nobody. Yeah. So I have to order this disordered world. I might, lots of 1s will say, I had to take on the role of the parent. And so what if we were going to use Freudian terms, we'd say that the most one of the things that really characterizes a one is this inflated superego. Right? The superego that's always telling you, okay, put a tamp down on this emotion. It's not right, right? It's the voice of the sort of the arbiter of truth, the arbiter of what's moral, what's right, what's good, and it will punish you when things are bad. Like if you are bad, like that's a nightmare to a one, right? That they're doing something bad or they are something bad, which is a common theme. Almost, it's for all ones, right? This fear of not being good.
You know, it's funny because as I think about how my faith intersects with that, as well as my my role as an expert in a field, if you will, you know, my faith is remarkably important to me. You know, which you can wrap around the idea of being good, of being moral, of being right, and being knowledgeable, an expert in my field, to be best in class, to not just be third or second, but to be number one.
Yes.
In whatever I do, even if it's the background of my Zoom call. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Oh yeah. Oh, I get it.
There's such an inherent danger there. And I think the way that I've learned to cope with all of that, is to go easy on myself, I suppose.
Interesting.
You know, to go easy on myself, and I think to go easy on others, because I realized like I will drive myself super hard, and that's made me successful in a lot of areas, but at what cost often? And the reality is, I'll do that to other people, and I'm like, what am I doing that for them for? That they never asked me to do that thing for them. But it is attention, and I think going to the melancholy when I'm doing bad, yep, totally true. And then I think going to impatience and anger is another thing. And I'm actually curious to like sort of plug at that a little bit, because impatience is a new thing for me. It's a new pandemic thing that I had never experienced before. I'm a very patient person, or at least I assumed, until I realized that I had ordered my life in such a way where I could be patient. But now, being at home 24/7, working at home, running a business at home, having 6 kids at home who are doing school at home. My wife runs a nonprofit at home. I find myself with so little patience, and like almost like, you know, my wick is like that, you know, long. And if folks can't see my fingers, I'm making a very short gesture. And it surprised me. And the first place I go after I get impatient is anger. And it's starting to echo pictures of my dad or my brother or my mom. And I think also uncovering that thing that you talked about, which is like sort of that anger sitting just beneath the surface, is realizing maybe I've just been hiding this thing the whole time. Maybe it's been there. It's just never had the ability to come out because I've been so practiced. I've been so patient. I've been able to conceal it. So, you know, if I can get a little bit of free therapy here, I'd love to understand that a little bit, actually.
Yeah, I'd like to understand it too. Historically in your life, have people ever told you that they sense that you're judgmental and critical, even when you're not saying anything?
100%.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I've had people tell me that I'm looking at them in a judgmental way.
Yes. Yes. Even when you're trying not to.
Yeah. Even when I'm intentionally doing the opposite. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have people said that they feel that you at times radiate shame? The feeling that everybody is not enough.
The feeling that everybody is not enough
compared to your yardstick.
Yeah, I can find echoes of that. I don't think I ever would have attached the word shame to it, but that sounds familiar. Yeah.
So I have a relative who is a 1 on the Enneagram and not at all self-aware. And I remember before I knew the Enneagram as a younger man, I always felt like the message I was getting from them without their having to even say it was, you're not enough. You do not measure up to my high internal standards. That everything you do will fall short of what I think is good and right and excellent.
Now you're echoing words that my wife has told me.
Now let's talk about you and your wife for a second. Your wife, Randy, right?
Yeah.
You're a 1. Is she a 9?
She is absolutely a 9.
Okay. This is like, I am like becoming a psychic. Okay. So I just want to say that every time I meet a 1, I ask them, is your partner or spouse a 9? And they get these big eyes. They go, how did you know that? And I say, because it is the most frequent combination I meet on the Enneagram are 9s and 1s.
Yeah.
I have some theories about it. And I'll tell you something that's interesting. 9s and 1s make up the bulk of my audience.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we have all types, but we have a disproportionate number of 1s and 9s.
Huh. What makes that up? Like, why?
Well, the 1s are easy because they are addicted to self-improvement.
Yeah.
Okay. So
lots of podcasts, lots of learning.
Podcasts, self-help books, how to be more productive. I mean, this is why sometimes I think 3s and 1s get a little overlay. And so 1s being people who really care about becoming better at who they are, what they do, right? They want to improve, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. They listen to podcasts. They want to learn about themselves so they can continually work on who they are. I think with 9s are a little puzzled by who they are and how they operate in the world. So I think that there's also there's an inherent curiosity that 9s have about the way the world is. And so I think that's one explanation. Now I think this is gonna sound terrible, but for 2 not very self-aware types, right? If you're not a self-aware 9 or not a self-aware 1,
sure,
right? I think 1s sometimes marry 9s because they're a great project to perfect that person. You're very different. Like 9s can tolerate disorder. In fact, they can be very disordered. They can be kind of disorganized. They can let things go that a 1 would never let go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like the 1 is like going, I think that 9 needs some help getting their life together, ordered, and the 9 looks to the 1 like, yeah, please. Yeah, please do that for me.
That's fascinating. The thing you just described is actually the exact opposite with my wife.
Okay, come on, bring it. I want to hear about it.
So my wife is remarkably organized, punctual. She's the one that like, did you do the thing on the day at the time that you needed to do so that this other thing can get done at this time? And I'm like, oh yeah, I said that I was going to do that. I don't remember.
Interesting.
And I actually think that this is probably more sort of, family of origin. I was never asked to do my chores as a kid. I was never asked to do my homework as a kid. We never were on time to anything as a kid. And so I've had to manufacture those things in adulthood, literally invent them out of thin air. My wife, all those things, all those structures were in place, and she also she became a single mom of 4 kids. And so you have to be very ordered if you're working and sending those kids to school and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think maybe that's a bit of where that comes from. That's not to say I don't have a ton of order in a bunch of other places, and I'm not thinking sort of at a macro level and a micro level about those things, and that she doesn't look to me for those things. But, if you want to point to one more organized person in this marriage, it's her. It's not me.
It's fascinating because there's a lot of reasons why that could be the case, but it's not typical. Right. So when a 9 is healthy, they'll go to the high side of 3 and be doing the kinds of things you're talking about now. Right. And when they're not doing great, they go to the low side of 6. I won't bother. I'm sorry. When the 9 is doing great, they go to the high side of 3, the low side of 6. So she may be operating at the high side of 3, or she could be a 9 with a super strong 1 wing. You could be a 1 with a super strong 9 wing. Right. So there's a lot of discernment. This is the whole thing about the Enneagram is like, it's not cut and dry. It's not like, okay, spits out a type. You are this, It's in a box. It's so much more fluid and it requires discernment. And this is why it can take a long time to figure out type. As you've been speaking, I've been hearing other types. in you. It's not like, okay, this is a super clear one. It is. You are not a super clear one.
Well, let me, sorry, I'm like in self-parody mode right now as a one, I think. Here's what I think I'm doing, and what I think you're noticing, I think, is I'm borrowing. All I'm doing as a self-improvement method is borrowing from other types to go, that looks good. I think I'll take that one part and integrate that into me and use it, because I believe that fundamentally is good and right.
Oh, okay. All right. But you're really describing a very important spiritual dynamic there. And this is something I talk about in my new book. And by the way, I need to get to Circle Media, and I need to get to your publishing company, which we're going to do next, because we've been talking quite a bit about it. And I think it's also indicative of some things that are one-ish. But, for me, what does health look like? What is, if you think about spirituality, what's the point, right? If you ask a typical Christian, let's say, well, what is the summit of your faith? Like, what does it look like? Right. And they actually don't have an answer. They'll say, like, well, I want to be more like Jesus. And I'm like, what does that mean? What can you tell me? Is it just mimicking or aping this historical figure? I mean, what is it and how would you ever get there? Right. And so, it's interesting to me, like, I don't hear any end game, well, what's the goal? Like, what's the point? Right. And I get very squishy, nebulous answers to that question. Right. So if I were using the Enneagram as a spiritual formation tool, and you think about the diagram going around, right, the Enneagram diagram, there's this gigantic field of white in the middle, right? Very, very big field of white in the middle, or an empty field, I should say.
Sure.
And what I tell people is, when you can let go of the grip, this paralytic grip that you have on your type, it's like not paralytic, but arthritic.
Sure.
It's like, it's like talons. It's like you're holding on to it for dear life, because it's helped you survive in the world. If you can let go of it and begin to migrate into the middle, to me, if you can get to the middle of that diagram, where you have access to all the gifts and energies of all the types, and begin in the moment to say, what does this moment require of me? Well, it requires the energy of this 3 and maybe this 5, or in this moment, I need to be more 6ish. And maybe in this moment, do you see where I'm going?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when people ask me, what number is Jesus? I say, he doesn't have a number. He lives. If you think of the Enneagram as a diagram of the central characteristics of the nature of God, Jesus is right in the middle.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I love
the Father and I are one. So it's like, now he has access, so that in every moment he knows what combination of gifts or to draw upon. And so if we can just let go of I don't want to say this, if we just get over being so loyal to our type, let go of it and get to that middle, we'll become more capacious, beautiful, and effective people in the world, because we'll have access to everything good.
Yeah.
That's what you're describing.
Oh, I love that. And I think that's a really beautiful way to put it. And I also think, quite validating, I suppose, to just hear, like, in some sense, I'm on the right path to as a one, especially. I really like that. I keep finding, as I grow as a person, that my core desire actually ends up being just to get out of the way of myself, and be less sort of goal oriented. Let me put it a different way. It's not that I reach the top of the mountain and put in all the hard work to do that, but I just remove sort of the scales from my eyes and realize, like, I'm already standing here. I just never opened up my eyes to notice it. That pile of shame, guilt, trauma, abuse. I mean, just like scratching back all that stuff so that you can just see what is right in front of you better. It's why, I adopted the phrase, like, if I can't be happy where I'm at, I can't be happy anywhere, as a young person, because I realized, like, if I'm going to be on this endless chase of better, new car, new friends, new job, new whatever, right? Like, it inherently is going to leave me deeply unhappy because I should be able to be content with where I'm at, which I'm a little bit far afield here from the original point. But yeah, I think it's a really fascinating way that you put it.
Hey everybody, one of the lessons I've learned over the years is that not everybody benefits from a traditional 50-minute counseling session. And this is why some people can go to couples therapy or personal counseling for a long time and never really get anywhere. This is why I'm such a believer of intensive counseling and my friends at Restoring the Soul in Colorado, created by my longtime friend Michael Cusick to help couples or individuals experience deep change in half-day blocks over 1 or 2 weeks. Now listen, if you can't wait months or years to get to the bottom of an issue or to experience breakthrough, you need to get in touch with my friend Michael and his extraordinary team of counselors at Restoring the Soul. If you're looking to get out of the rut you're in, but can't wait months or years, call Restoring the Soul today for a free consultation with Michael's staff. Call 303-932-9777 and learn how their intensive counseling process can help you. As a special bonus, just for Typology listeners, make sure to visit www.restoringthesoul.com/typology to download their PDF called 5 Ways Unaddressed Trauma May Be Derailing Your Relationships. You sound like a Buddhist Christian to me, but anyway, which is not a bad thing to be a Buddhist enriched Christian. You know, in other words, that you take the best of maybe what another tradition has to offer and let it be just part of the mix, you know. But that, and the reason I say that is that ability to just accept things as they are, or Mrs. Accept isn't the right word, to allow things as they are to be as they are. Mm-hmm. Right. It doesn't mean you don't want to improve things or make things better. Okay. Yeah. I'm not saying that, but this is the way it is right now.
Yeah.
This is how it is maybe more of what I'm talking about. Now, tell me about Circle Media and tell me about your publishing company, both of which you started, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to, because I did a little research here. So, you know, I want to hear about them. Give us a little brief overview.
Yeah. So, I finished college. I become a professional photographer of all things. I spent a decade doing that. And out of the blue, I started a tech company with a good friend of mine. And the core idea there was he had bought iPod Touches for his kids, who were, you know, something like 8, 9, and 10 at that time. They just came out and he thought he was the coolest dad in the world. And then he realized that he had put the internet in their pocket and they weren't ready for that. That he had sort of disambiguated the family computer and individualized it for each of them. So this is, you know, like, this is a pretty sort of heady concept as a parent to go, oh my God, what have I done? And he's like, there's gotta be a way to solve this. And he's like, there's no software that I can put on this. And he's like, even then my kid might delete it. So he's like, come start a company with me and we're going to solve this problem. And I was like, oh, that's a really great problem to solve. Like, how do we allow parents to parent in the digital age? And I had, my kid was 3 at the time. And so we started a company and didn't know what we didn't know. And that was the best thing possible. It took 3 years to get to launch, raise money, ran out of money, raised money, ran out of money, lost team members, you know, had people join, quit, you know, blah, 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 couldn't pay anybody. And get to market in 2015 with a product called Circle with Disney in partnership with the Walt Disney Company, which is a whole own really cool story of how that happened. Mm-hmm. And the core idea is this little white box that you connect to your network, whether wirelessly or via Ethernet, and it would see every device on your network and give you as the parent or the caregiver, the grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, you name it, sort of master of your dominion, a pause button for the internet. You could set time limits for specific platforms like Netflix or YouTube or, you know, you name it, and set a bedtime so that when your kid, you know, reached 7:30 or 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, their internet just like shut off, but the rest of the devices didn't shut off. And then you could also track what they saw and what they interacted with, how long they spent on different platforms. And then last but not least, filter out content, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure a lot of 8-year-olds need to be looking at porn. So, you could sort of toggle those switches on and off and have it be by person in the home and make it as user-friendly as one app on one of the parents' phones to be able to manage all those devices without ever having to touch any of those devices. Spent a number of years growing that up, and I learned so much. I'm at heart a creative person, not a business person, I would say. And yet I start companies for a living, I'd say. And it became this cool avenue to have a bigger playground to work out my creativity, company building, if you will, because there was more spaces to go solve problems, right? On finance, there was spaces. On, product, there was spaces, marketing, the website, you name it. Had a blast doing that. It was also really deeply hard because it was the first time that I was working with people. And as a one,
yeah, they'll mess everything up, man.
yeah, good night. I spent a decade as a freelance photographer working by myself for myself, and working with people was like, why aren't they doing what I would do? Like, what's wrong with them? And I remember getting I didn't know how to cope with it, quite honestly. And it taught me a lot, I think, about leadership. It taught me a lot about people. It taught me a lot about myself and what it means to not just get things done, but gain consensus to sort of, build ideas, build a company, build meaning and purpose in the work that we do. So at the height of that, back in 2018, I was burned out. Quite honestly, I was getting sidelined in the company in general, because I'm first and foremost, right, an improver, and a risk taker. Like, there is no risk too big to take to do something that's worthwhile to do. And so I was always trying to swing the bat as hard as we could. And everybody was like going, all we're doing is bunting today. And that's what the company became about. And look, that's neither here nor there in terms of whether that was right or wrong. It just wasn't the thing that I was into. So that's when I wrote my little book. And it just happened that coincided. I was burned out. I wanted a personal project outside of work. So I wrote a book for my kids titled A Kid's Book About Racism. Now, somewhere in there, right, years previous, I had gotten remarried. I had brought on 4 stepkids. I had my own biological kid and 1 kid on the way. And, we were talking about race, culture, color, because when you show up as a Black dad, going to pick up your white kids, their friends start to go, who's that guy? And that conversation has to be pretty open inside the home. And so I made the book mostly as just a cool dad thing to do for my kids, as a way to keep that conversation going, not having any other big ambition with it other than this will be kind of cool and fun and a distraction from work. And, wrote it in a week, designed it in a week, printed 1 copy, got it in October of 2018, showed it to my kids, and they were like, this is cool, Dad. I was like, great, mission accomplished. But I showed it to other parents and they were like floored. And I started to have a series of the same conversation over and over and over again. First, it was, oh my God, can I read it? And then they would proceed to read it, cover to cover right in front of me, 64-page children's book. And then they would ask, can I have a copy? Of which I'd say no, because it's my only copy. I wasn't planning on printing more. And then they would open up a part of their lives next that often had nothing to do with racism, but it was another difficult, challenging, vulnerable space, whether that was their mental health, whether that was an experience of a death in the family, some conversation that they realized that they don't have very often, that they should be having more. And now they were having it with me. And I was going, oh my God, what has my little kid's book done? And it planted this seed to go, you know what? I think there's a there, not just from a product perspective or from a money-making perspective, but more so from a this needs to exist in the world. And it's a shame that it doesn't. And I might be the one person who's qualified to do that. And I say that with a ton of confidence, knowing that there's not a lot of, Black CEOs of publishing companies. There's not a lot who are coming from the tech industry, from the entrepreneurship industry, coming to make books. And for me, having not grown up with a dad, having grown up with a pretty sort of absent mother emotionally, I made the decision with my own kids to have every conversation too early instead of too late. Very consciously, sort of inventing my own kind of fatherhood, since I didn't have a dad around to do that. And these books just became an outpouring of that. And I realized they don't exist because nobody's been in a position to make them.
Right.
I just happened to be in that position to do that.
So you've got a bunch of other titles. You've got a kid's book about feminism. I love that. You've got a kid's book about depression. What other one? And anxiety. You have another one, a kid's book about anxiety. Well, I know you've got a ton of these titles. Just give me 4 or 5 other
empathy,
titles. Change,
anxiety, God, death, COVID-19, systemic racism, white privilege, all of parents' favorite conversations to have with their kids, right?
Right. Yes. Right. Do you have one about a kid's book about addiction?
Yeah, yes. It's not shipping yet, but we've made it and it's on pre-order.
That's fantastic. Boy, I thought I was going to add something to the pile, Anthony. What? Nothing happened there. Maybe I'll come up with one.
No, please do. Please do.
You could write a kid's book about the Enneagram.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
There's a self-interested promotion on my part.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So can I just say that you're not a clear one to me yet?
All right.
It's not saying you're not a one. I'm not saying you're not a one. Because the one is a self, the only test or measure of a type is self-validation. You're the only one who knows. Let me ask you one question. Do you have a punishing, harsh inner critic?
Let me say this. It very likely is that. I just don't call it that.
Mm-hmm.
I might use the word motivation. I might use the word I don't know, discernment. I might use the word humility. Whether those things are actually true or not, that inner voice is those things. Let me tell you a story, okay? And I'll let you decide whether this is a internal punishing critic or
just harsh. Maybe that's it's always saying to you, you could have done this better. Why didn't you do that better? You should be better at that. You ought to be better at that. You must do this different next time. And it's kind of got a little bit of a finger wag to it.
See, when you say that, I'm thinking of my last 3 months of a lot of my interactions with my kids. Like a lot of finger wagging, a lot of you can do that better, a lot of that's not right, a lot of please eat over your plate, a lot of, please don't say that to your sister. No, really, please don't say that to your sister. And so I have to imagine that has to translate internally. I often think of that internal drive and motivation is to make something good or great, to make something beautiful and cool. And at every step of the way, every iteration, I love that thing, but also want to make it better. Like it's both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just
so
want to take out the word harsh and I just want to put in like the right critic, like a critic.
Now some ones, by the way, would say that inner critic is their friend, and others would say it's not. Okay. Some would say, this thing has really helped me, not hurt me. But after a lot of self-examination, ones may often come back and go, oh yeah, now I know what you're saying when it's harsh. Now I understand it. That said, every person of a type manifests that the features and the hallmark traits of that type in different ways, right? There's no cookie cutter. It's not a stereotype. It's a type. That said, there are hallmark features of the one that are squishy on you. You know what I'm saying? That aren't exactly that. That's one of the reasons I asked you at the beginning of the interview, how well do you know all the other types?
Sure.
Did you read all 9 types and really, did you really care about knowing all 9 types?
You know, to some extent early on, I didn't, I think, but later I did once I sort of started to learn more about the one and feel that scary sense of like, why is it peering in, into my life in these ways? Like it shouldn't know these things because nobody knows these things. Like that scary feeling. I've never had that about reading about any of the other types. And so I spent the time to actually look into it, just to go, what are these other types and what do they do and what do they mean? And feeling totally sort of distant from even understanding what those things would mean because I don't feel any of those things. I suppose back on your other point on the harsh critic, here's how I can't see the critic in some sense, and maybe that's the critic in me unable to identify that, but I can see the effect of it in that I like this distant thing where it's like sometimes I have a hard time taking care of myself. And I think that probably draws back to this idea of being hard on myself, but I think of if I get to anywhere, I only get as far as like, I should take care of myself more. Like I should buy socks more often, right? Like I should take more breaks, like that kind of stuff, as opposed to all the way back to going like, what's making me not take care of myself? Like what's that voice that says you have to go harder today to do more? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I would say you have a lot of 4 qualities, you have a lot of 1 qualities, you have a lot of 3 qualities, and you have a lot of 7 qualities, all 4 of those types. And there may be a very good reason for that, right? 3 of those types are tied together by arrows on the Enneagram. So here's maybe one thing I'd say to you. You have a lot of 1 qualities, but other types have a lot of 1-ish qualities too. I have a very strong inner critic. I'm a 4. 3s can get confused with 1s because 3s have high sets of internal standards. They have goals. They want to get stuff done. You know what I mean? They are very concerned with excellence. So again, you have a lot of these qualities of other types. It's not as some people, it's like, I nail it. It's so clear to me. They are that type. And as I listen to you, you make me curious. Not to be clear, I never tell somebody their type. But I may say to them, I would go back and read all 9 types. And I would pay attention particularly to 3s, 4s, and 7s, like in your case. That said, there is a subtype of 1s that is a little bit more like you. And you haven't, it doesn't sound like you've had an opportunity yet to dive into subtypes, but there's 3 different versions of the 1, 3 different versions of the 4, of the 7, of the 5, of the 6. And they are nuanced differences. Okay. And there is a 1 that is less concerned with perfecting themselves than they are with perfecting others in the world. Their inner critic tends to be more outwardly focused than inwardly directed. Right. So anyway, I may actually have you back on if you choose to do a big deep dive. Right, into all 9 types and read all 9 types. Right. Like jump into my book would be a good place. And then maybe if you would contact me and say, I've changed my mind. And if you change your mind, I'm having you back on. Because that's my favorite told you so moment.
Yeah. Well, I want to look into it in as much as hearing you say, I'm not so sure. That makes me want to go, I want to know. I want to know if I'm right at the very least.
Because that would be important to you.
It would be. Yeah. No, because I already think I'm right. So I'm like, well, I got to go prove I'm right. So I just got to go, read up on it.
Right. Well, just don't use that confirmation bias as you read, and man, I've loved this conversation. And I've loved the opportunity to hear what you've spoken about. And just to circle back and make it clear, I think that both Circle Media and the new book publishing company that you have going have very 1-ish qualities. I will say that. There's a lot of wanting to improve the world, making the world more controlled and ordered, wanting to make the world a better place, is a teaching component to both of them. And 1s love to teach. They just love to teach. There's a quality to them that is about how the world should be. in my mind.
Yeah.
About how the world should be in my mind. And I think that's fantastic. When it's used well, it really blesses the world. You know, it really blesses the world. How can people learn more about what you're doing?
Oh, that's easy. You can find what I'm up to with the book publishing company at akidsbookabout.com. And then at akidsbookabout on Twitter, Instagram, you name it. I love getting emails from people. So Jelani at akidsbookabout.com. I take cold pitches on books, love ideas for new products that we should do, et cetera, et cetera. That's where to find me.
Man. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on. And I want to say, I don't know what your type is. I never know what anybody's type is. That's up to them to figure out, and share. But let's circle back to each other. Because it may also be an opportunity for us to talk about 3 subtypes of ones, right?
Yeah.
Because not all are created the same. All right. And listen, typology friends, Anthony,
Ian,
be yourself, buddy.
everybody else is already taken.